My colleagues and I wanted to learn more about women's experiences in climate action. We found a lot of information, but we wanted to hear their stories from them directly. Because stories are important. Stories pass down tradition, values, and knowledge. Stories help encourage emotional engagement and foster empathy. So my colleagues and I began contacting the leaders of organizations across the globe, and we asked them if they would share their stories with us. Through our partnerships with them, we felt encouraged to start the Climate Knowledge Collective to create a free and central space where other people could hear their stories too. Now, before listening to their stories, I thought things like information and technology were most important when it came to climate action. Today, I'm inviting you inside of their stories to show you why I was wrong. Let's start with Dr. Olivia Scott Kamkwamba's perspective. She is the executive director of the Moving Windmills Project in Malawi, which is a country located in southeastern Africa next to Tanzania. Here, climate change has increased droughts and water insecurity. So her and her organization created resource centers to make more opportunities for people to participate in sustainable farming. Here is one of her insights regarding her community work. When cultural scripts are at play, it is important to understand what a script means and the security that it provides. Scripts, or stories, are important, and listening to them is key. I also learned this from Aching Harriet, the gender, energy, and climate change specialist at the Rural Country Development Organization in Uganda, which is a landlocked country in East Africa above Tanzania. Her and her organization work on gender inequality, resource management, and sustainable farming practices, as erratic rainfall, droughts, and flooding have contributed to crop failure and water insecurity. Aching Harriet described how women have so much labor to do, but that every kind of tool or technology that was enhanced to help was given to the men. So she equips women with tools like solar power and provides opportunities for women equal to that of men. She is changing the norm, and she is changing the story. Next, I will show you the words of Neon Kiplagat, the founder and executive director of the Paran Women's Group in Kenya, which is east of Uganda, next to the Indian Ocean. Here, increasing temperatures, intensified droughts, and heavy, unpredictable rainfall are impacting crops and livestock. She works alongside women to change norms too. She puts into perspective how women are coming to solutions together. She said, "At first, even these women could not even go to the government offices because in our culture, a woman cannot stand when they have a meeting. They can only kneel and talk when there is a man. So nowadays, we are not kneeling." Women came together and made that space different. They changed the story. Speaking of spaces, Penina Musimi, the founder of Awesome Blossoms and Safe Spaces, which is also in Kenya, is creating spaces for women to learn skills like hydroponic farming because climate change has dried the land. From listening to her story, I started to understand how it's not just information or tools that matter. It's bigger than that. She said, "My goal was to empower girls to give them skills and make sure they get an education and become self-reliant. That's the only way they could get freedom from all of the issues that were happening with men. That's the only way they could stay away from abusive relationships and domestic violence. They would have the power to make decisions and lead their community. They would change the community. Women are shaping their communities through their leadership. And I'm starting to hear how encouragement is central to climate action. I also heard this from Tanya Gale, the executive director of Green City Force in the USA. She works alongside women to encourage young people to build green infrastructure in New York City, as they've been experiencing climate change-related issues like heat waves, flooding, and air pollution. From her perspective, many of the residents we educate and train about urban farming, solar installations, and climate resilience are women who become community leaders through these programs. It's about creating spaces and encouraging people to create the spaces that they want. Going back to Dr. Olivia Scott Kamkwamba's perspective, by creating a space where diverse voices can take root and find appropriate opportunities, we are giving non-traditional candidates a chance. The key is to seed power and give other people a chance to identify their gifts, nourish their strengths, and flourish in community. Let's hear next from Gemma May Kamani. She's the Global Program Manager of the Moving Windmills Project. She said, "True impact comes when communities define problems and solutions themselves." Gemma May Kamani also shared with us her story about how people made space for her when she was early in her career. She said, "I had a great female boss. I'd never had a female boss at that level before. I'd never seen a woman at that level of leadership. She would spend a lot of time helping me with fundraising strategies and putting me at the forefront of lots of meetings and helping me pinpoint where my strong and weak areas are." Tanya Gale told us a similar story, how she was encouraged by a boss early in her career. She said, "My boss was piloting a lot of new projects, and they included travel and outreach to military bases and working with domestic recovery women, and all these things that were interesting, and nobody else wanted to do it. And she was like, 'I think you should do it.' And she basically positioned me to have this leadership role. She was this great support and a great role model for me, and super helpful." What I am hearing is that mentors created space and made opportunities for their mentees. And then those mentees went and created space and made opportunities for their mentees. The climate change activists were encouraged to do what they valued. And then they paid it forward by passing it on, like a story, by encouraging others to do what they valued too. From listening to their stories, I expanded my point of view. It's not just funding and information and tools that matter for climate action. Listening, making space, and encouraging each other matters too. And that's something we all could do, if you want. Thank you.